Hello and welcome to the Media Copilot. It's a podcast that explores how AI is changing media, journalism, and content creation. I'm Pete Pachal, longtime tech journalist and founder of the Media Copilot, and I love the holidays. Why? Well, because it's a time to take a step back, relax, and reflect, and that's exactly what I'm doing this week instead of my usual interview with a media or tech executive. In this episode, I'm going to highlight some of the bigger themes in AI and media in conversations that I've had over the past year. I've spoken to a lot of media executives, tech builders, journalists in 2025, and many of the same topics keep coming up. How can media companies get fair compensation from AI platforms crawling their content? What are the most effective ways newsrooms can use AI to speed up or even improve their work? And what are the ethics behind all this? Is it ever okay to publish AI-generated content? How should newsrooms disclose their use of AI? I don't have all the answers, but my guests do. And in this special episode, I've assembled the best clips from the past year of the Media Copilot podcast. So grab some eggnog, sit back in front of the fire, and enjoy some rapid-fire insights about the biggest force changing media today, AI. First up, let's talk money. The ground rules are AI ingests content and serves up summaries instead of links. How do publishers get paid in an AI-mediated world? There are ways, but first let's diagnose the problem. Bill Gross, CEO, ProRata. ProRata says, and I'm quoting right from the website here, is to do nothing less than making sure that there's a thriving ecosystem of creators, businesses, and consumers that benefit from the emerging world of zero-click search. That's a great goal. And my first question is, how's that going? How far are you away from that goal, that vision today?
Well, we really feel we're setting a standard that we want other people to emulate. We feel that revenue should be shared from AI engines just as revenue is shared in almost every other creative endeavor. Revenue is shared to musicians in Spotify. Revenue is shared to YouTube creators. Revenue is shared to app developers. It should be no different when people's content is used to provide value to users. That revenue should be shared with the creators. So our whole goal is to really make that happen. Whether it happens through us or through just the pressure of our example would make us happy either way.
Annalise Jansen, Chief Business Officer, ProRata.
Bill decided to build a new economic model and start on the other end, basically to say, how can I build a knowledge graph using a RAG store to generate answers using content that I have access to? So we're building a RAG-based system with content we have access to. We don't crawl it, we don't scrape it. We have agreements to use that content to generate answers. So you almost start on the other end of the spectrum, which is a clean RAG store with a knowledge graph that builds these answers. And because we have access to the content and the RAG store with unique claims using style words and a number of additional vectors, we're able to attribute the content used for that particular answer.
Mark Howard, COO, Time Inc. Is this the B2B side of things? Is this something that a door has very consciously been open, and are you pursuing that?
Yeah, everything is intentional in terms of being able to get ourselves ready for where the world is going, especially in the world of IP licensing and distribution. So, like I mentioned, we have several partnerships already in place. We had to develop delivery mechanisms to be able to get them that content so that not only did they have access to the archives as part of those arrangements, but they had all the content that we publish on a go-forward basis. It's exactly right. We've now vectorized all of it. We've indexed everything. We've created this agentic layer. We are thinking a lot about MCP, RSL, other standards and protocols that are being developed to be able to have us be more transactional on the agent-to-agent web. That's, I think, all in super early stages. We're also thinking a lot about AI marketplaces. We hope that a lot of the great work that Tolbit and ScalePost and others have done to try to get the media side, the supply side ready for AI marketplaces, while they haven't materialized in any great level yet. I know there's a number of other marketplaces that are well in development that potentially could be even larger on an enterprise scale. But the ability for AI bots to be able to quickly, easily, in a structured way, be able to find the information they want, retrieve it, hopefully ethically source that information, and when appropriate, compensate fairly. A marketplace dynamic would be great, where obviously they have great prices are easy to transact on. That is where I believe this is all going. I believe that I know it's been well discussed. Bill Gross certainly talked a lot about this, but the ethical sourcing of IP and data to be able to be surfaced in AI answer platforms and any agentic experience. Your point is absolutely right. I think companies are going to be building all kinds of different agents to go out there and bring back information for their customers. So I don't think it's just the frontier labs. I do think that there's going to be a whole explosive world of agents out there that do need information on specific topics that they know, and their ability to find it easily will hopefully be much more than worth the very nominal fee that it will cost them to be able to source that info.
Adam Singolda, CEO, Taboola. So you brought up like Google and Meta at the outset, and they're obviously very successful performance advertising networks. So Taboola is like that, in other words, for the open web, and you're enabled through these partnerships with publishers, such that if someone comes to you and is like, I want, because everyone sort of thinks about Facebook, you're like, okay, I wanted to get this really granular sort of audience persona, this ideal customer, and I'm going to sort of drill it down geographically, demographically, and all these other ways. And you're able to do similar things because of your knowledge of the audience on all these sites. How are you able to do similar things?
What happens is, if you think about search, which is very bottom of the funnel, I'm telling you what I want, and social, right, which is I tell you who I am. Mm-hmm. The open web is kind of this authenticity graph where I read about things I really care about. It's almost like this consideration graph, because I would never read about a healthcare situation, a resort, a product, unless I'm interested, unless I'm considering that thing. So a lot of times you read about something that you would, by the way, maybe never share. Like if I have 3 kids, if there's something that I'm thinking about my kids, I'm never going to put it on Meta. Like it's so personal, so important for me. But I'm going to spend hours at times reading about it. And this is when Taboola sees you or interacts with consumers. About 600 million people every day read content, watch videos across the web on incredible publishers, trusted publishers. And that's where Taboola we have first-party integration with those publishers. So we get to know you're the same person. We don't know your name. But we know that the same computer reads these type of things. And it helps us calibrate this, opinion about which markets you're in. So if you're reading about, 5 best coffee machines, there's a good chance you're thinking about buying a coffee machine. You may not there right now, but you're thinking about it. And that's a way for us to slowly help you progress, in that journey until you potentially buy.
You might say 2025 was the year of the bots. The longstanding honor code of the internet, the robots.txt file, is being openly ignored by AI companies, leading to a massive spike in unauthorized scraping. How can publishers fight back? Well, my guests have some ideas. Tosit Panigrahi, CEO, Tollbit. So apparently, according to, actually, it's not just according to your report, because you cite directly into the terms of service of some of these bots, Google and Perplexity, and I think there was one other that you said, Meta, right? That was it. And they've basically given themselves permission to ignore robots.txt for that particular bot, for the user agent, saying this, well, this is just like human traffic. That just seems really worrisome to me. and I know that robots.txt, like we just said, kind of gets ignored anyway, but to brazenly sort of take this stance signals sort of something deeper, I feel like, that is really notable. I don't know, what is your, first of all, have I accurately kind of summarized that? Secondly, what is your overall take on that specific change? Because it seems like, although it's kind of a little change in a sense, because it's one of 3 things, and it seems like it's really, really relevant.
It's absolutely relevant. And I think you captured it exactly right? It's baked into the terms of service, and they're saying, well, this is just like a browser acting on your behalf or user or agent acting on your behalf. So we should be allowed to just bypass it right now, right? I think there's two, things to be just wary about, right? To be fair, right? Some agents in the past, even before GPT technology, right, LLMs, did say in their terms of service that, well, we're going to bypass robots text, and it was largely functional things, right? Like you send a message, say in Messenger, right? Facebook will use a specific user agent to fetch information about the title of the link you send, the image of the link you send. And in that case, they're like, look, we're going to bypass it because it's just better for the user experience, right? We can show you an image in the message, right? That has existed, right? I think this was another instance, right? And the reason we called it out specifically was it was using an old norm of the internet in a way that was a little unfair now, right? And a little dangerous now. And it happened, we saw that happen with the robots text file before, right? Where it was meant for SEO crawlers and say ad crawlers, right? To look at the right things. And then it was like, okay, well, you could also just reuse this and it's an honor system. And you just have to trust us that, as a tech company, we're gonna abide by it, right? And we know that that's not enough. We know next step of Tollbit for a lot of publishers, start enforcing that, right? To make sure that the content that you shouldn't be read stays off limits, right? And now we're seeing a similar thing again, where it's taking something that seemed innocuous in the past and it's sort of borrowing, right? It's like a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's just borrowing that same innocuous standard that, we used to also kind of do this before. So we're also going to continue to kind of do this today, right? So I think that's the first dangerous thing that of passing it off as the same thing.
Right.
And the second part about that is also a little dangerous because it also does in some ways, right? Like this isn't just for, say, UX benefits, perhaps, right? Now, in the past, if you look at the rhetoric, right, to say, well, if you don't want us looking at your content, put it in your robots text. We're going to abide by it, right? To then saying, then the industry found out, wait a second, you're not following that, right? Well, that's okay. We're going to send you lots of traffic, right? Then we found out, well, actually, those click-through rates and referrals are low, right? Now to then openly evolve that and say, well, I know you had the robots text file, but we're going to ignore it anyways, right? It's this weird slippery slope of where does this stop?
Arielle Guerreri, Chief Marketing and Alliances Officer, Datadog.
So what's changed a lot is the level of sophistication of attacks. Today, the same way that you and I use AI to make our life easier, so do fraudsters. So that means that the attacks are both more sophisticated and also more numerous and faster. And most companies used to have static defenses. And today you cannot match the pace of AI and the complexity of AI with static defenses. So what we're seeing is many more customers that are turning to specialized protections like us. So that's really on the attack side.
And is that because you mentioned CDNs, and I didn't want to leave it completely into us, is that most clients that you have, I guess, or people would come to you would have expected certain things to be solved by either like their provider, essentially, like who's that they're either hosting on or what have you. And it seems to me from the implication of what you're saying is that things are changing so quickly and things are both in terms of sophistication and scale that's not enough. Is that fair to say?
That's exactly right. And it is necessary, but not enough. So if you think of something like a DDoS attack, which aims at bringing your site down, if you'd asked me this question 2 years ago, Pete, I would have told you, yeah, this is largely solved by the tool stack that most of the customers have. But today, attackers have become really good at understanding the limitations of those technologies and understanding that it takes them some amount of time to react and adapt. And what they figured out is most of these technologies need a couple of minutes to adapt to new threats, and they attack within that 2-minute window. They do that, and they do that also using distributed IPs, which means they use your IP and my IP, which as a website, you don't want to block me or you don't want to block you from accessing your site. So you don't know how to distinguish what's valid traffic and what's not anymore. And so we're seeing extremely high volume, extremely distributed attacks that happen within a matter of minutes, seconds, and that essentially fall in the cracks of the existing detection. We stop about 20% more DDoS attacks than the first layer of defense that is typically a CDN.
Stephanie Cohen, Chief Strategy Officer, Cloudflare.
The Cloudflare network, as you mentioned, more than 20% of the internet sits behind Cloudflare. And what's exciting about that is its breadth of the internet, but also depth of the internet. So we have lots of really large customers that sit behind Cloudflare and lots of individuals. We actually have millions of free customers on the Cloudflare network. What we changed is we changed the defaults for new domains. So those are new domains coming onto the Cloudflare network. Of course, we have that capability for everyone who sits behind the Cloudflare network, so they also can one-click make that choice. But the change that was made on July 1st was for new domains coming onto the Cloudflare network. But you spend a lot of time in the technology space, and defaults matter. And so we started with changing the defaults for new domains on the network.
Yeah, defaults matter a lot, and just all I have to do is honestly look at the recent antitrust trial with Google to sort of see that. And there's a reason they decided to make a deal with Apple so they could be the default on the iPhone. It matters a lot. So in that sense, okay, so for new domains going forward, they're going to be specifically asked but basically, if they don't make a choice, I imagine it's opt out, right? Is how that'll work. And right.
The way that it works is when you're signing in, when you're setting up your new domain, it asks you what you want, and it's set to block AI training. And it's set to do that, by the way, either by blocking at the network level and or also managing your robots. So it's doing both, with the idea being that depending on the crawler, sometimes you can block at the network level. Sometimes you need to instruct that crawler using a robots.txt message. But that is what is clicked in sign up, but you easily can unclick it. You can click other options. There are a bunch of other things that you can do. But if you just go through the sign up flow and don't make any changes, then what you will be doing is you'll be blocking AI training.
Gotcha. And if you are an existing customer, is there anything that happens, or is it just, do you get like an email telling you that this is a standard you can change, or like if you go into your settings, like see a dialogue or something? I don't know.
What our existing customers are seeing is that there's now more ability to see who's crawling your site and also make changes on that. So actually, last September, we announced something which was the beginning of what we're doing here, which was providing every domain sitting behind Cloudflare with the visibility to see who was scraping their site and to turn it on or off. By the way, when we did that, over 1 million sites actually clicked block all, which we viewed as the most aggressive thing that you could do. And it was one of the reasons why we decided that it made sense to make this change on the Cloudflare network, because we saw real demand for it when we put it in there as an option.
AI is also being used to solve one of the most persistent problems in our industry, the decline of local news. This tech allows even small teams to cover local events at a speed and volume that was previously impossible. Here's how. Mark Riley, founder, Matheson AI. I could see a lot of media companies just thinking we should give up because there's going to be like some Perplexity that does it, or some user using a very popular tool like ChatGPT or whatever, so almost demoted media companies might almost just end up demoting themselves as these purveyors of just raw information, signing licensing deals and not worrying about their own experience, right? That's kind of where I feel like the give up side might think things are going. But is that the future? What do you think?
Well, it's a bit of a cliche that, armies always train for the previous war and they're never ready for the next one. I think it's a mistake to think of this debate in the same terms as the debate with the search engines and the previous platforms. I mean, the value exchange there was very different. And there's come to a sort of an agreement that we'll take traffic in return for part of our content. And I think this discussion is radically different. And it's less about negotiating away content, because the traffic coming back as definitely not working in the same scenario. And then media companies have to make the decision, well, how do we play with these platforms, these new AI platforms? We play nicely. Do we cut deals? Where do we get the value exchange there? But I would also, I mean, again, as I'm a natural optimist and something of an accelerationist, I would take that fear away and frame it as an opportunity. And again, let these platforms do the grunt work, which is relevant to building particularly new tools, which I think are really exciting. But there's going to be a human element here where you're good at this, right? The podcast plus newsletter business. It's all driven by personality. And I think people should lean into the people behind these paywalls, the personalities that are driving opinion, and the ones who are doing well on Substack. They're going to thrive in this environment. People will crave that human intelligence and that human opinion. So I would technocratically see the platforms as an opportunity and lean into my human side.
I will, in a self-serving way, agree with you because I think you're right. I think there is the human element that people will always crave, and I think how AI can serve as a discovery engine for that is still a bit TBD. Finally, we have to talk about the lines we won't cross. As synthetic content floods our feeds, the most valuable thing a newsroom has is its integrity. Many of my guests explored where the red lines are in using AI in the newsroom. Tracy Mabry, General Manager, Factiva. Nice. Okay, so you come up with this great product. You're like, hey, we can do these summaries. We can make it so that you don't have to be a data scientist and create a whole equation of Boolean operators to get the things that you want. Sounds awesome. And now you're like, well, wait a minute. We need to talk to the publishers, right? And make sure this is because, this is obviously new stuff, obviously wasn't in your contracts. Like you said, you had to go one by one on all of these. You mentioned earlier a word that I really want to double click on, which is it took some education for some of your partners. Can you walk me through maybe some of the issues that they had and how you had to sort of show them the value of this and how beneficial it could be to them? How did those go? Those people who might have been a little reluctant to sort of, I don't know, maybe I don't want my stuff ingested in your AI tools or whatever. How did you get them on board?
Well, I think that last bit that you just said was really where the starting point was, because AI was so new. It went from that exhilarating, exciting to, oh, I have anxiety. That it's a great idea, but how do I apply it? I still need to run a business. I still need to make money. We still have journalists that are at the core of everything that we do. All of that was very much central to very early conversations that we had. But then at the same time, because we, again, have a very wide swath of publishers within our ecosystem, it also almost became a bit of an education on AI, again, in the very early days, right? Everybody was learning together. And when we were talking, RAG model, that wasn't in anyone's ethos or thought process, right? Retrieval augmented generation. It was a word that came up and was built. Agents was new. Hoovering up data and hallucinations, all of these AI terms were very, very new. And then once it was a bit of an AI education, it did very much become of, okay, number one, how are you going to ensure that my content is secure, right? I think that was one of the very central and early conversations that we had in earnest. And we were very, very excited to have it, because this is where, too, us being in this business now for almost 3 decades, we have always been secure. We always put content at the core of what is in Factiva, and secure delivery in the heart of how we promote and bring Factiva to market. So ensuring that we would be within a closed ecosystem, if you will, that there would not be any other content coming in that would wrap around or be making additional kind of assumptions within a summarization, et cetera. The content that is permissioned for Gen AI is the content that is delivered in our summarizations. And that's always going to continue. Only the Gen AI content licensed for Gen AI is going to be within our Gen AI tools, whether they are our tools or our data capabilities that we'll be powering with our Gen AI content. So it was really important to know, one, we were secure, right? And that you're not going to be sending the data elsewhere, all of those things. So there was definitely the security component on the education. And then finally, it does come down to, well, this is all great. And we have been in a royalty ecosystem with you as part of Factiva. So how are we going to be compensated? Because if we're going to be doing something new, going to new places with new faces, how are we going to be? Does this mean we're going to be hopefully getting more compensation for it? And that was really the third education question, to speak to publishers that have been with us for quite some time, that are coming on in this new AI journey with us. How are we going to be compensating publishers? And we have had a very robust royalty structure for these nearly 3 decades we've been in business. And it's a royalty structure that has evolved and continued to develop and change over time as the industry has. And the fact that we're now able to introduce, as we have called it, new royalty moments within generative AI, that became a very positive contributing factor for publishers signing on.
Trip Adler, founder, created by humans. So the whole idea is that you're going to the publishers and then through them, advising them, getting them to, I suppose, adjust their contracts with the writers and getting their writers on board for these rights for AI to do stuff with their works, right? And that sounds like a big process in and of itself. But the dimensions of like what AI can do with it, I'm actually really interested in, because it's like can you sort of summarize how that breaks down? Because there's like training, there's RAG, there's agents. I don't know if this cover your contracts cover all of that, but what is like that, I guess, section of these contracts? How has it sort of evolved? Like what can an AI do with one of these if it is cleared?
Yeah, so the first thing we did is we defined this concept of AI rights. Right, when AI came along and it collided with the content world, there was no like structure for how AI rights should work. So we defined the concept of AI rights, and we realized there are actually 3 types of AI rights. I mean, there might be more over time, but we've started by defining 3 that we think largely capture what needs to be captured. So it's pretty similar to what you just mentioned. So the first one is training rights. This is the right to for a piece of content to be used by AI models for training. The second is what we call reference rights, which is the ability to use content for RAG. We call it reference rights because it's kind of like more of a booky word. It's like the idea that these AI models can reference the book using RAG. And then the third category of AI rights, we call them transformative rights, and that's the ability to take a piece of content and transform it into something new using AI. Because in the future, you could take a book and you could personalize it with AI. You can adjust the length with AI. You can you can turn it into a movie with AI. I mean, you can do all sorts of things. So we're building what we call the transformative rights framework for that. So that's kind of how we've defined it so far.
Wow, that's interesting. I really want to sort of dive into that in a bit. So as I understand, you've also kind of got this, I don't know if how literal this is, but I was reading about you've defined sort of a 4th law of robotics or something sort of off of the Asimov laws. Is that at a higher level than this sort of specific stuff we've just been talking about in terms of like what's guiding the principles here? Can you explain what that is? Like, for those that don't know, the 3 laws of robotics are like the do no harm or don't harm humans. Maybe you could explain like whether those apply and what this 4th law is.
Yeah, so we created this legal framework for AI rights, but we realized to really solve this, we had to kind of get a little philosophical here, because when we first started on this path, there's arguments being made, and this argument is still being made, that since a human has the ability to read all the books they want and then communicate what they learn from those books, therefore AI models should also be able to do the same thing. And this didn't really feel right to us. We thought that human can only read and communicate so many books in their life. An AI model can in a matter of moments read millions of books and then distribute that to the whole world. So we thought that we needed a new way of thinking about this. And we were inspired by Isaac Asimov. He created the 3 laws of robotics, and he basically said, like, in the future you're going to need certain rules to regulate the relationship between humans and robots. And what we realized that we need a 4th law here, which is a law that regulates how robots can learn from human behavior and human creative output. And basically what the 4th law says is that if a robot wants to, or an AI model wants to learn from a human, such as like training on their book, this should happen in a way that benefits the human and the robot. And there's 5 principles underpinning the 4th law. There's, humans have the right to consent to their data being used. They have the right to control how their data is used. They have the right to get compensated for it or negotiate compensation for it. They should get credit for it. And then there should be continuous learning of how these, there should be like a pipeline where the robots can always be learning from the latest and greatest creations of humans. So that's what the 4th law is. We created this as kind of like a philosophical framework, and then we built the legal model of AI rights kind of around that framework.
And that's it. Thanks for joining me on this special edition of the Media Copilot. Thanks also for being a loyal listener. Don't worry, there will be more interviews that go deep on how AI is changing media in the new year. Be seeing you